Good evening, everybody. It's been a great afternoon, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful second session tomorrow morning. But this is very special now here at the Charles Hotel. It's going to be a special opportunity to share our thoughts and our ideas about education in a context where we have somebody who actually is responsible for education in the ultimate sense, the governor of Oklahoma. So the governor was elected with the biggest margin ever for the first time he ran, right? Now, I don't know about the second time, but the first time he ran, everybody was really behind him, which was quite an accomplishment. Now, you know, he's actually had some real experience in the real world. He's not just a person who's had a political career, as important as that is. He started with just $100,000 in his pocket and a computer, and he built Gateway Mortgage Group into a pretty big outfit. So I won't tell you how big it was, but it was pretty big. And so he decided that, you know, economic growth is what it's all about. And if we don't have economic growth, we don't have a great country. We can't have a great educational system if we can't take care of it economically. And so he has tried to, and we can't have a great economy unless we have an educated population. You know, human capital is more important than any other kind of capital out there. If we don't have human capital, we don't have productivity, and we have to constantly improve our human capital. And Governor Stitt is one of those political leaders, and there are not that many who fully understands that fact. So one of the things about Oklahoma is that it's a very prosperous part of our country today, perhaps because some other parts of the country aren't really doing their job. I'm not going to mention any names, but you can fill in the blanks yourself. So, but education's a big part of his agenda because he knows that if you don't have a great school system, you will not have a growing economy in your state. And that is truly the case, and it's delightful to know that we have a governor committed to that. Now, one of the first things he did when he came into office was he said, I'm not going to sign any bill until you give me an education bill. And I must say it was pretty well done, because he says, first of all, I want to give all the teachers in the state a raise. And I actually think that's just essential, because we do not pay our teachers well enough. They should be. Now, some places they pay them well, but we don't pay our teachers well enough across the board. And so I think that was a great part of his plan. But he also said, I want to give parents choice of school. And so he told the legislature, give me a bill that does those two things at once. Well, that solves a lot of political problems, doesn't it? When you say, I'm going to do a big time raise in pay for teachers and a big time expansion of school choice. So we have a leader who's got strong commitments and a leader who knows how to put them into action. So it's really my special privilege tonight to introduce you to Governor Kevin Stitt. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. It's great to be here with everybody tonight. You know, I get to do so many cool things as governor. My wife and I, we've been married for 25 years, and we have 6 children. And our 18-year-old just joined the Army. And we're so proud of him. Thank you. So we went to his swearing-in ceremony. And when you swear into the Army, you promise to obey the President of the United States, to defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And here's my 18-year-old son, because he's also joining the Oklahoma National Guard. With his hand in the air, he promises to obey the commands of the governor of the state of Oklahoma. So I, of course, have been wearing him out, go polish my boot, soldier, go wash my truck, and he's been rolling his eyes at his dad. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. So my story, I'll just kind of fill in a little of the blanks there. I'd never been in politics before. I ran in 2018. I grew up in Norman, Oklahoma, went to Norman Public Schools all the way through. My dad was a pastor. I went to Oklahoma State for college, so go Cowboys. I'm a little more neutral now, so Boomer Sooner as well, if you guys know the politics in Oklahoma. And then after college, I started a company with $1,000 in a computer and grew that. It's called Gateway First Bank today, and we have over 1,000 employees. And I just saw my state was struggling in 2018. We just weren't prospering. We were having teacher walkouts, billion-dollar budget deficits, no money in savings. And I looked to see who was running for governor. And I'm a fourth-generation Oklahoman, and it was just more of the same. It was just the same career politicians, just kind of stepping up the ladder. And I just felt compelled, I felt called from a faith perspective to get involved. And that's the great thing about our country, is it's supposed to be citizen-led. And I think our founders never thought politics was going to be like a profession. They thought you'd be a successful business person or teacher or farmer or rancher, and you'd go serve your state or your country, and then you'd come back to the private sector. So that's what I promised Oklahomans I would do. I was fortunate enough, I won. And now it's a different story in Oklahoma. We have the largest savings account in our state's history. It's over $5 billion. We've cut taxes. I've put more money in education than any other governor before me. And it's just amazing, the story that we've got the lowest unemployment. So things are really going well. And Oklahoma's story is a unique story. A lot of people, and I love to share our story because people think Oklahoma, well, that's just an oil and gas state. And we're so proud of our oil and gas industry. We're actually number 6 in oil production, number 5 in natural gas, but we're also number 3 in wind energy production. And we're one of only 4 states that 45% of our energy comes from renewables. So Google has their largest data center here. Before I flew out here today, I just did a press conference with Blue Whale. It's a new company moving to Oklahoma, doing refurbishing on batteries. They take all the batteries and extract all of the rare earth minerals out of that. So we've really diversified our economy, and now we're top 10 in people moving to the state of Oklahoma. And you know what state we get most people from? California. That's exactly right. So these people come up to me from California, and they're like, "Governor, we just moved here. Let's get a picture or something." I said, "Well, here's the deal. Hang on." I go, "I had to wait 18 years to vote in Oklahoma. I'm going to make you wait 18 years before you vote in the state of Oklahoma." That's just a joke. I know this is being recorded. I'm just kidding. But they very quickly, they tell me, they go, no, Governor, we're moving here because of your pro-business, pro-family, your policies that you guys have in place, the education system, the freedom for homeschools, the education freedom that we see that's happening in your state. That just makes me feel so good that people can see the difference in our state. And, I promised Oklahomans that I would put a fresh set of eyes on everything. So as a business person, I had a governor's scorecard. And I think it's important that you take a realistic look of where you're sitting at compared to other states, right? And so one of the things that I think is important to touch on is we were last place when I took over in incarceration rates. We incarcerated more men and women than any other state. And I thought, well, that's weird. Either our people are worse than everybody else or our policies are messed up. And as a business guy, I didn't have any interaction with the criminal justice system till I got there, but I realized, man, this is messed up. And today, 2019, my first year in office, I signed the largest commutation in U.S. history. I had no idea at the time. We let 500 people, low-level drug offenders, get second chances. And today, we have 5,000 fewer people incarcerated in Oklahoma than we did when I took office. We've closed 4 prisons, 2 private prisons, 2 other prisons. It's 4 prisons. I've saved the taxpayer hundreds of millions of dollars. And now right now, Oklahoma is number 2 in the entire country in lowest recidivism rate, people going back into prison. So it's just amazing what we've been able to accomplish. And we're still working on that. But we know that people don't just end up in prison. Did you know that 75% of the people in prison across our country did not graduate from high school, okay? People who dropped out of high school are 8 times more likely to end up incarcerated. And so I knew that if we wanted to reduce the number of people in our prison, reduce recidivism rate, that we really needed to start focusing and fix our education system. So I started getting really passionate and looking where we ranked in our education system. And if we're not top 10 in something, I'm pushing my team that we can do better. If California's doing something, or Texas, or Florida, or Massachusetts, then we want to get that, and we want to make our state better. So I made a goal that we need to be top 10 in every single thing that we do. You know, our founders believed that in order for a democracy to succeed, we needed a well-educated population. I loved what Thomas Jefferson said. He said, "I think by far the most important bill in our whole code is that for the diffusion of knowledge among people. No other sure foundation can be devised for the preservation of freedom and happiness." And that was the genesis of our public school system in the United States. A blessing that really so many other countries don't have the opportunity that we have here in the U.S. The U.S. actually is the second highest in funding per student in the entire world, but our outcomes are only like 14th. So I know we can do better. The key, I believe, to giving kids a better future is you got to give them hope as well. So the key to giving kids hope is a strong education system that is decentralized and presents a lot of different options, okay? Nothing is more local than a parent choosing what is the best option for their children, okay? Bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. don't know what kids in rural Oklahoma or Green Bay, Wisconsin, or Baltimore, Maryland, they don't know exactly what they need to thrive. After all, if you think about the workforce, it's so different across our country. You know, when you think about downtown Baltimore, they don't really have an agrarian economy like we do in some of the rural parts of Oklahoma. So maybe not a need like we do in western Oklahoma to teach some of the 4-H and some of the ag programs. But they do need strong manufacturing and healthcare workforce. So we think that local control is super important. In Oklahoma, we believe in local control that empowers parents to make the education choices that best fit their kids' needs. Okay, it's that simple. Our kids are not wards of the federal government. No parent should be forced to hand over their children's education to kind of a one-size-fits-all system. That's one of the main reasons that I've ended up investing more in education than any other governor before me. So the 5 years I've been here, we've put more money in public education than the 25 years that preceded me. And also, you know, charter schools are a great example of this. Charter schools are public schools with community management and with innovative curriculum. So I want to brag on them for a second. In Oklahoma, we have a charter school called Santa Fe South, and it's in a low-income neighborhood. About 95% of the kids that go there are Hispanic. They have 4,000 kids with 1,000 kids on the waiting list. Dove Science Academy, they've got one in Oklahoma City and one in Tulsa. 3,000 students go there. They specialize in STEM education, and we have 700 on the waiting list. And at Santa Fe South, they've got a program where kids can earn an associate's degree while they're in high school, and kids in this program have a 100% graduation rate, and 72% of them graduate with their associate's degree when they graduate from high school. So that means they're graduating with like 60 hours of college credit. It's almost non-existent in the public schools around those charter schools. Santa Fe students also that aren't in that program still have a 92% graduation rate, and 100% of those graduates are accepted into college or into a career tech program by graduation. New York City, a lot of you guys know this stat, but they've got 163,000 kids right now on the waiting list to get into a charter school in New York. And depending on that lottery system for admittance, a study by researchers at Harvard and Princeton found that winning that charter school lottery in New York City reduced the likelihood of incarceration by male students by 100%. I had my team fact check that because I was like, there's no way. That's unbelievable. So we need more options. We need more of those charter schools around, and we're inviting them to the state of Oklahoma. And this is important for everybody to realize. No one is forcing a student to go to a charter school over their public school, or their zip code school is what we call it. But if the zip code school is failing student, then let's give those kids more options. That's all we're saying in our state. Why is the government standing in the way, forcing them to stay in a failed system? A student's success should not be dictated by their neighborhood, by their background, or their socioeconomic status. We all agree on that. We believe that. Most kids will go to a local public school, but we know more options are a good thing, and not every kid learns exactly the same way. With 6 kids of my own, I know that they're so different from each and every one of them. And we also believe competition is making our school system better in the state. And this is catching on. In 2023, 19 states across the country have expanded school choice. Just this week, North Carolina became the 10th state to enact a universal school choice plan. Now, any family can receive tuition assistance to send their kid to a school of their choice. So I'm just so proud of North Carolina for getting that across the finish line. And, that's what will improve education across the country, and that's what we're doing back home in Oklahoma. I want every kid in Oklahoma to graduate, and I say it like this. I want every kid to graduate college ready or career ready. In other words, nationally, 61% of kids are going on after high school going to college, okay? And that's awesome, and we need more engineers, we need more doctors, we need more lawyers. But what are we doing with that other 39%? What type of hope, what type of jobs and careers are those kids, are we getting them ready for? And, I want to focus on them and make sure that those kids in high school know that there is a great future and a hope and a plan for them. God puts uniquely desires in every one of our hearts and give these kids unique abilities. And so in Norman, Oklahoma, where I went to high school, this year we set up an aviation program. So when you're a junior in high school, if you want to become a pilot or if you want to become an A&P mechanic, you could start going to this special high school. So when you graduate, you're an A&P mechanic. And, aviation defense is a huge industry in Oklahoma. We have Tinker Air Force Base, which is 30,000 employees right there in the heart of Oklahoma City. And it is the Air Force's largest maintenance repair facility for the entire Air Force, which means it's the entire world. We sustain and keep all of our Air Force fleet flying. In Tulsa is American Airlines' largest maintenance repair facility on the commercial side. So I was meeting with the executives at American, and they said, Governor, do you know how much our starting salary is for an A&P mechanic? And I said, no, tell me. And they said $70,000 a year. And I asked also those guys in the room, I said, how many of y'all started on the shop floor? And about 40% of the C-suite said they started on the shop floor as an A&P mechanic. And then so we're creating pathways through our community colleges to take that A&P, get your bachelor's, get your master's. So I went home and told my son, I said, you're going to become an A&P mechanic. He said, Dad, I thought I was going to Oklahoma State. I go, that's backup plan, son. But in Oklahoma, we've also approved the first ever in the nation religious charter school. And we're really proud of that. The Catholic dioceses are now setting up a religious charter school in the state of Oklahoma. You got folks that are coming in, they're going to sue and blah, 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 and it's probably going to end up in the Supreme Court. But here's the deal. Some parents want to send their kids to schools that emphasize their faith tradition. And we think in Oklahoma, that's fantastic. We think that's great. After all, what parent doesn't want to instill their values and their faith in their children, right? That's pretty common sense. I met with one of my good friends, Rabbi Goldman, there in Oklahoma, and he was telling me how families, in his community, they want to send their kids to a Jewish day school, but just they can't afford it. And they want to teach the kids the Torah, they want to serve kosher meals at lunch, the traditional things that they do at a Jewish day school. And we want that kind of stuff to be possible in the state of Oklahoma. We do not believe we should discriminate against anyone based on their faith or their religion. It's important to note that no one, I've said it before and I'll keep saying it, nobody forces you to go to a charter school or a Christian school or a private school. You can go to we're going to keep investing in our public education, but we believe these options are good for kids. And if it fits their needs, we want more of those available for our families in Oklahoma. More options are good. People with means, I love saying this in crowds like this, and people with means already have school choice. It's really simple. But the bottom line is school choice cannot be just for the rich. I want school choice to be available for every single family and every single parent in the state of Oklahoma. To make sure that kids of any income bracket could go to school that best fits their needs, in Oklahoma this past year, we passed what we call a refundable tax credit to help pay for tuition to be used at any school that a parent says is the best option for their kids. There's also a refundable tax credit for parents who choose to homeschool their kids. We didn't want to leave out the homeschool community. We heard from a mom there in Oklahoma. Her name was Nicole, and she has 4 kids, and they all go to Oklahoma Public Schools. 2 of her kids are absolutely thriving. They're great teachers. They're learning well in the classroom. But her other 2 children were diagnosed with dyslexia. And that affects, and we all know someone who has trouble maybe learning to read or learning in a certain environment in the traditional classroom. And she was super concerned about her 2 kids. They were failing. She didn't know what she was going to do. She was getting no help at the public school. They just didn't know how to relate, probably didn't know how to make accommodations there. It was a smaller school. And now Nicole has an opportunity to send her kids to any school through this tax credit plan, refundable tax credit plan, to a school of their choice. So those are the type of real life examples that are moving the needle and making a difference in our state. But let me be clear. We have to continue to invest in our public schools and hold really all schools accountable for the best outcomes for our kids. We believe competition is going to continue to raise the bar and make all our schools better. I think you've seen that in South Florida. Jeb Bush has been tutoring me on what he did in Florida 20 years ago, and we're seeing that happen all over Florida, and we're trying to bring that to Oklahoma. I want Oklahoma to be top 10 in education, and that starts with making sure that we also reward our teachers, and Paul spoke about that, but having the best teachers in the classroom is so important. I tell people the magic happens when we have our best teachers teaching the classroom. And I think back to my favorite teachers and teachers that poured into my life. And so I'm always bragging and promoting our teachers. I've given them 2 huge pay raises. This year was another $6,000 pay raise. Now we're number 1 in our region. Cost of living adjusted, I don't know, we could debate that, but we're pretty up there as well. But we're really excited about our teachers. But remember this, we could invest billions of dollars every year in our schools, but if we don't have engaged families, those investments are going to fall flat. We know that as the family goes, so goes society. In Oklahoma, we are very bold about family values. We talk about it a lot. We know that a strong nuclear family sets up kids for success. If you want to combat poverty, have strong families. Here's a stat that'll amaze you. Less than 5% of the time, our households are in poverty if they have a mom and a dad who are married in the home raising their kids. Less than 5% of the time, that's in poverty. 38% of households with a single mom live in poverty right now. But the sad reality is that 1 in 4 kids live without a father in the home. This is a crisis of fatherlessness right now in our country. And even in a home with a mom and a dad, the average boy is spending about 30 minutes per week in a one-on-one conversation with his father. The same boy will spend about 44 hours per week on his phone, watching TV, playing video games. So we're trying to change that. We're trying to promote getting more engaged with our kids in the state and the importance of that. We need present fathers, strong households to set up kids for success. In other words, Kids need their moms and they need their dads. A family built on a strong marriage is the best tool to combat poverty in the U.S. All in all, kids, they can't be successful in a vacuum. They need that strong family. They need a competitive education system. They need a competitive education system with more options so they can learn in an environment that best suits their needs. In Oklahoma, we are going to continue to be the most pro-business, pro-family state in the country, and we're going to continue to graduate our young people and get them ready to lead great lives and great careers. And thank you guys so much for allowing me to spend a few minutes with you today, and God bless you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
So, Governor, can we ask a few questions?
Sure, absolutely.
So let me start off just by asking, what's your interpretation of why the school choice idea has picked up steam in the last 3-4 years? What do you think is the driving thing? Some people say it's the pandemic. Others point to other factors out there. What do you think is the driving force? Because you mentioned all these states, and we see that there's a lot of changes. People are moving from one school to another. So what do you think is driving it?
You know, I believe the pandemic really highlighted a lot of stuff. And I'll give you an example. You know, in Oklahoma, 99% of our schools were open, but a large school district in Tulsa, we believe in local control, so that school district had closed down. And they were closed for 355 days. And if any of you were governor, and you had to field the calls from the moms and the dads that would call my office and would say, Governor, it's not fair, because Broken Arrow and Sand Springs and Sepulpa and all the other towns around were open. So you could cross the zip code or right across the line, and their kids were in school, and they were saying, Governor, my first grader is not learning how to read on Zoom right now. And it would break your heart. And so I think there was an overwhelmed movement to never let that happen again. To give that kid, if that school district is not aligned with what the parents in that area, we talk about decentralization. If the families in that area, they're teaching things, they're not getting their kids college ready or career ready. I think it just really highlighted it during that pandemic. People started realizing what was happening. They wanted more options. We all see our friends going to different schools. And so I think we all want the same things, regardless of where we live or our political background. We want the best education for our kids. We want the best infrastructure, the best health care, and the best economy. And I tell people, let's just focus on that. Let Washington, D.C. play politics. We're Oklahomans. Let's just focus on those 4 things. And I think we can get a lot of stuff done in our country and obviously in our states.
So are there any other questions? Yes.
Hi, thank you for being here today. I'm Caroline Allen. I'm the Vice President of the YAS Prize. I wanted to see how do you envision microschools and personalized learning models being truly scalable?
Well, thank you. The YAS Foundation? Yeah, I love you guys. You guys are awesome. Tell Michael I said hi. You know, those micro schools, that's also kind of came out of COVID and maybe co-ops and homeschoolers, and I've heard other states when people were shut down and they didn't have an opportunity to educate their kids, they were getting together and they were hiring a teacher and they were co-oping that education process. That's the great thing about the micro schools. I don't know if you're going to be able to scale it because it's supposed to be organic and it's supposed to be options, but now in Oklahoma, when every single kid has $7,500 or $5,000, we did depending on your income bracket, we did $7,500 down to $5,000. But everybody, regardless of income, now has this refundable tax credit, which is basically like a check to go to a school or to hire a teacher or to set another school up. I think you're going to see innovation, innovation, innovation. That's what I love about the YAS Foundation is you guys are promoting and you're rewarding those innovative schools out there. It's just amazing. So we want more of that innovation in Oklahoma. And like I said, it's super simple. When I get to meet all the businesses, I get to meet all the leaders. Let's take the business community. What are the jobs that we need to fill? And then let's align our education system to meet those needs. It's that simple. I'll give you one example, and I'm talking a lot on this question. Here's how education system works, or higher ed specifically. So I had these hospitals call me. I'm a brand new governor. It's 2019, and they're like, Governor, we need more nurses. And I'm like, no problem. I'm the governor. We can make it happen. So I go to OU Health Science Center. I said, why aren't we teaching more nurses? Give me your stats. And they said, well, we're only accepting 250 nursing students a year. And I'm like, okay, well, how many are applying? They go, 600. I'm like, well, why aren't you taking all 600? And because I come from the business world, right? There's no way you'd turn away 600 customers. And they're like, well, Governor, you just don't understand. It's faculty to student ratio and all this stuff. I'm like, let's bring some more desks in the classroom. Let's teach some more kids. So anyway, but in business, you got to ask about 4 questions deep. Otherwise, they just try to spin you in a circle, right? So I kept asking questions. What's Texas A&M do? At Texas A&M, what are the student to faculty ratios there? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, one of my favorite press conferences a couple years ago. It was with OU Health Science Center, and the president of OU's there. And we had 550 nursing applicants, and they accepted, guess how many they accepted? 550. And so sometimes you just have to push on those education community, align with the workforce, and then align. And so in Oklahoma, we're a flat organization. We should be able to figure that out. That's why businesses are coming, because we're going to get that workforce for them.
All right, any other?
Hello,
There we go.
Governor. My name is Meredith Olson. I'm with Bela Education Fund and based in Wichita, Kansas, so not too far from you.
Yeah.
We've had the benefit of supporting Oklahoma-based founders who are serving more than 94,000 families and learners. So it's been remarkable, the work that's happening in your state. This past year, you and together with your legislature were able to be one of those 10 states that you mentioned with universal private school choice legislation. But unlike other states, instead of passing an ESA, you have this refundable tax credit. Could you share with us what you see as the policy advantages of a refundable tax credit as compared to an ESA?
Yeah, so refundable tax credit versus ESA. The refundable tax credit is a check really made out to the parents. And so they get the check, and we're still working through all the rules through the tax commission, but then that check is going to be delivered to the school of their choice or wherever they want to go. But the school doesn't have to be on a list. The school doesn't have to approve. The school's not taking government money, which a lot of your homeschoolers, your private schools are reluctant to let the government get their hooks in them, so to speak. And so we thought it was very important, it's more flexibility to give that money directly to a parent and allow them to use it how they see best fit in whatever school possible. So that's why we did it that way. Fortunately, the legislature agreed with me, and we got it across the finish line.
Governor, hi. Robert Enlow from Ed Choice. How are you?
Great.
Great. So thank you so much for your story and for passing the nation's first refundable tax credit program, which Milton Friedman, our founder, would love. So thank you for that. As you know, the Oklahoma tax credit just passed, and the rules were just proposed. And those rules, as you said, you wanted to advantage low-income families. And those rules are not necessarily maybe doing that. So might you talk about the challenges with implementation that you're having and how you see proposed rules going forward?
That's a typical problem sometimes in government. Most people think that the governor gets to appoint all the different folks and run the state. But man, there's so much bureaucracy. So the tax commission has the person that runs it is by a board, basically hires that guy, and so or lady, and they're working through the rules. We're not real happy with them right now. So I've been working with the House. I was just with the Speaker of the House. He's not really happy with them. So we're having some conversations behind the scenes to make sure that it's transparent. It's easy for people to use. They wanted to tax those taxable credits. And we're like, oh my gosh, come on, this is ridiculous. They were wanting to, anybody that gets this refundable tax credit to go to the school of their choice, then they're going to pay taxes on it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So they're like, well, the bill, the language wasn't that clear. And so then you're always dealing with, is it true? I'm not an attorney. Do I have to go back to the legislature next year? Well, that would be a beatdown, right? All the funders, y'all wouldn't want to have to come back in and have to help me fund this whole campaign again, would you? But going back and getting it done. But I think we're going to work it out. I think we're going to get a good rules passed. The main thing is we're going to get those in every single family's hands to be able to go to a school of their choice, and it's not going to be taxable income for them. So.
Well, Governor, we'd like to hear you all night long, but you need to eat. So
Thank you guys.
very much.
Thank y'all. Thank you, everybody.